How will women know that a man is ready for a relationship?
Don't ever ask anybody if they're ready. This is the worst thing you can do because you're going to get a false positive.
Thank you so much for joining us today on Second Act TV. I am so happy to welcome back relationship and dating expert and matchmaker for over 20 years, April Beyer. April, thanks so much for being here again.
It's a pleasure. I love seeing you. So much fun to be here.
Well, it's always fun with you. You have wonderful information. Our viewers love you. And I think today's topic is going to go over very well. How will women know that a man is ready for a relationship? And you have just a wealth of information on that through your company, Level Connections. You're the CEO and founder of Level Connections. Briefly explain that to our audience, because that's really important to understand.
Well, I've been matchmaking, as you say, for, gosh, I think I'm really going on 25 years, although I hate to admit how much time it's been. But I have always been in the business of searching for men. So the men that hire me are coming to me at different stages of relationship readiness, and we can talk about that. But they are willing to invest. They're willing to invest in the search for the one. So it's very curated, it's personalized. It's really more of a consultancy. So long before I'll match a client, I have to get them ready. I have to get them ready for love because people are coming to me at different stages. When I talk about the investment that men make, I'm not talking about strictly financial. I'm talking
Mhm.
about the emotional investment in this.
Mhm.
Because in order to work with a matchmaker, especially one on one in a very personalized way, the way that I do, I really become their friend, their confidant, their mentor, their sister in their search. I'm kind of doing it all. So I look at it as a journey, and I love it. So that's why we're talking about readiness today, because you can get involved with somebody who's not so ready, and it could end up burning a lot of your time.
Yeah. And see, I love that for especially for our audience. Now, you know that we have a big audience of men as well. We're just about 50-50. So
Mhm.
the advice here is for women, how women can recognize readiness in a man. But I really would like to hear from our men about the advice. What do you think about this? Can you identify with what we're going to talk about, and join in and give advice to our women? This is what this is all about. So, well, let's get started. April, how can a woman determine whether or not a man is ready? You have an article here that I found about 3 things that relationship ready men do. Let's talk about that.
Well, there's many more than three, but we can start there. Readiness is an interesting thing, Silka. I often find that if I tell a man, I don't think you're ready, or I tell a woman, people are offended. And we
Mhm.
need to really take a look at that because readiness is just another stop at the station. Readiness is part of your journey. So when someone says, I don't know if you're ready, or I don't think I'm ready, it doesn't mean that there's anything wrong with you. It doesn't mean you're not capable of love or being loved. But in order to be in partnership, we're talking about something that is far more pragmatic and
Mhm.
practical than just the feeling and the expression
Mhm.
of attraction and love. It's like, are you ready to take
Mhm.
on another human being? Are you ready to be really ultimately responsible for another human being, which we can unpack? Because isn't
Mhm.
that what it is when we get married? Don't we feel really
Yeah,
responsible for our mates, right? All of a sudden, their
absolutely.
health becomes paramount, their
Yeah.
finances, everything, their family
Mhm.
members. So we then take on our extended family through these relationships. So we really have to think in terms of what am I ready for in partnership, not what am I
Mhm.
ready for as far as the feeling of love. Two
Mhm.
completely different things.
And really, this is advice, I would think, also for women. I mean, some of this would apply because are we ready? It's not,
Yeah.
yes, we want the guy to be ready, but are we ready? So I don't know. I'm looking forward to this conversation. You say here that your first point is they respond, that men who are ready, they respond when you're interested in them. What does that mean?
Well, I think a lot of women are still surviving on very old advice. I hear grown women saying, well, I read this book, April, I read an article, or I went to a dating coach and they said to, dial it back and play the mystery card a little bit. That works for a certain age demographic. But once you reach a place of maturity and
Hmm.
relationship experience,
Hmm.
relationship minded men do not want you to be mysterious. When you express interest, and you don't have to, do all the work, but when you've expressed, hey, I like you, it's been a pleasure to meet you, I'd love to see you again, that's all as a woman you really need to do. If he's interested, he will pick up on that and he will respond. I also will go an extra step and say that even when a man isn't interested in you personally, the response is also a sign of readiness. It just doesn't mean he's ready for you. So maybe we can unpack that for a second. I think character follows you wherever you go.
Hmm.
Relationship ready men don't ghost, even when they're not interested. They'll
Hmm.
write you back. They'll call you back. They'll send you an email. They'll say, it was really lovely meeting you. I just don't think that we have the ingredients to pursue a relationship, but it's been wonderful to get to know you. That could mean a lot. That just means that this man is really at this stage of readiness of being able to be forthright and honest and a good communicator. And he
Hmm.
recognizes a good woman. It just might
Right.
not be you.
Maybe.
So
Right.
we have to get that thicker skin of like, okay, I just got declined, but that doesn't mean he's not ready. It just
Hmm.
means that he's not interested in me. So when I say they respond when you're interested in them, it doesn't mean that they're going to go out with you or put a ring on your finger. It just means they have a really good response time. They don't wait a week or 2 weeks to get back to you. They don't call you 3 weeks later and say, I'm so sorry. This was going on with my kids and my ex
Hmm.
wife and my work. They're basically, those men are allowing everything and everyone to get in the way of their communication with a woman.
Hmm.
Relationship ready people, people who are dedicated, are really good with response time. So I think if we define that difference, then a lot of women will start to ease up on all of the chatter in their mind and their girlfriends of like, well, what does it mean? I haven't heard from him in a while, or maybe he's just this. We have to stop making excuses and we have to start letting things and people go who are
Hmm.
not showing up as we are.
Hmm. It
Yeah.
makes so much sense. And really everything you just said, or a lot of it anyway, does apply to women as well. You can tell if you're relationship ready, how responsive are you? Because we turn men down all the time too. And how do we do that? And I love what you said about that they would write an email and at least acknowledge, not ghost. Because even that when you do get turned down, that's such a kind thing to do. I mean, you might not like it, but it is kind. And I have heard from women and men that they appreciated that. Your second point here in your article is really interesting. They fall, a man who's ready for a relationship, that's what we're talking about, they fall in love faster than women. I don't think I've ever heard it put that way.
Yeah, I know that's an interesting one because we have to define the difference between the love bomber and the person who's really falling in love. What's been fascinating about my career in matchmaking is men come to me and they say, hey, I'm ready. Here's my investment. I want to work with you to help me find love.
Mm-hmm.
But there's key things that stand out. First of all, they're not tearing women down. They're not picky. People who are very, very picky, who have a lot of parameters, they box themselves into the unattainable. That's a sign of this person isn't as ready. But when men are more open minded, they know what they want, they know what they're looking for. They do experience the feeling, the falling in love a little faster than women. And here's
Mm-hmm.
why. As women, we have a natural built in protective barrier. Our instincts will guide us and tell us, okay, go slower here.
Mm-hmm.
Don't go hard over head. Like keep yourself balanced. Men, I think men have maybe, they're not so risk averse, a lot of them. So when they find a woman that they really like,
Mm-hmm.
they don't do all of that heavy duty thought process of, is this going to work, is she going to hurt my heart? They're not filtering in the same way. So what happens is they kind of become very joyous and very excited at first, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think it's
Mm-hmm.
up to us as women to say, okay, how much of this is real, right? So you're
Mm-hmm.
minding the store at all times, right? The men that I have worked with who fell in love quickly, the ones that got married through me, what was fascinating is they all called me ahead of the woman and saying, April, I think she's it. And sometimes it's even been 6 weeks in. Now, the women knew they liked
Mm-hmm.
him, but they were still calling me and waiting for the other shoe to drop. They were still calling and going, oh, I like him, but I'm being cautiously optimistic. It's the
Mm-hmm.
men that privately came to me and said, I'm she's she's the one. I'm not going to tell her yet, but
Yeah.
she's the one. So they may not be telling you, but their expression and how excited they are, it's just a little bit more unfiltered, I think, than women. And I don't think that there's a good or bad here. I'm just stating what I've seen over and over. It's the men that called and said, I'm falling in love.
That's really interesting. I don't know, like you said, how do you tell the difference between the love bomber and what's real? So I guess we have to be conscious of that. But the, as you said, the expression of that is a good thing. It's a real good thing.
Yeah, the difference is that when you feel that intense chemistry and a
Mhm,
feeling of safety and being at home at the exact same time,
mhm,
love isn't somebody that's overpowering you with romance and
mhm.
sweeping you off your feet. That's in a book.
Yeah,
That's in a
yeah.
movie. Love is somebody who is considerate of you, considerate of your schedule, somebody who is loving you and
Mhm.
caring for you, being thoughtful about you. They're not trying to pour
Yeah.
love and stickiness all over you. They're just letting you be, but they're also being very consistent with you, not overwhelming. The love bombing feels very flattering,
Mhm.
very overwhelming, and
Yes.
suddenly you're dropping your schedule. Suddenly you're
Yeah.
not in charge of your own life. You're dropping friends. Like
Yeah.
that's a completely different thing
You
to be
always have
loved.
such an interesting way of explaining this stuff. And that's what
Oh, thanks.
our viewers say that too. It's in the comments,
Mm,
just like, ah, this is like the best advice I've gotten on your channel yet. So again, thank you
mm.
for your time. I know how busy you are.
Thank you.
Point three. Now, this is again something I wouldn't have thought. The men who are relationship ready, they long for you to be vulnerable. That just goes like so not doesn't compute.
Yeah. There's 3 or 4 or 5 adjectives men give me on their profiles when they first come in, and vulnerability seems to be one of them. But I also think it's important that we unpack vulnerability because,
Hmm.
it's gotten so popular, this word,
Yeah.
Brene Brown teaches vulnerability,
Hmm.
and I've
Yeah.
been preaching vulnerability for 20 plus years. To me, when I say vulnerability, I think a lot of people hear vulnerability and they think it means you spill your candy in the lobby and that you open yourself up and you tell this man everything right from the get go. That's not what I'm talking about. Vulnerability is really transparency at its highest level. Vulnerability is being accessible, open, warm, honest, fearless. Vulnerability is as much about expressing your joy and your hopes and your dreams as it is sharing something that was meaningful to you or
Hmm.
a sorrow that you've had. And when you can combine all of them in a holistic way, then no one can use anything against you, right? So let's say you share a story with somebody on a date, and we can talk about when it's the right timing for what
Hmm.
you share and how you share it.
Hmm.
You share something and then you come away thinking, oh, I shared something very private with this person, and then they didn't
Hmm.
they didn't call back again. Well,
Mm.
it's possible that that's all you shared. You only shared the pain or the grief or the disappointment, but you didn't share your intellect, your courage, your
Mhm.
joys, your hopes, your dreams. And when you can blend it all together, there's really
Mhm.
nothing anybody can quote unquote use against you. So
Mhm.
when someone can meet you and they come away from that experience with you saying, I get her. Like I could really reach her. She was so real. She was so honest. She was so comfortable in her skin.
Mhm.
She let me see who she was.
Yes.
She wasn't holding me at arm's length distance and making me prove myself
Mm.
until I was, deemed worthy of her. And I think there's a lot of people after loss, they kind of put their walls up and they think it keeps them safe, but it's the opposite. Women with walls lose because you don't want the guy with the
Mm.
ladder, because if he's got a ladder, that means he likes to climb. And what happens is once you're vulnerable and open, which is technically 90 days in when people let their guard down, you're now suddenly someone different than the one he's been
Mm.
chasing. So you got to be really careful.
Interesting. That is so interesting the way you just explained that.
It's like false marketing. It's like
Yeah.
saying, here's my store, I sell donuts. And then you come in, I'm like, no, 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 there's no donuts here. We sell fruits and vegetables. You have to just be real about what you are and who you
Mhm.
are. But that doesn't mean go into a date and say, okay, here's all my fear and my
Mhm.
pain and my sorrow. Please hold my heart carefully and fix it and tell me that you're the person I can trust. That's not
Mhm.
what we need to be doing as women because you're
Mhm.
talking to someone that you don't know very well yet.
Right.
Kind of like you and I
Right.
talked about the women on The Bachelor. Remember that?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
With the perception is women thought they were being vulnerable with him, but all
Mhm.
they were doing was sharing grief.
Grief. Exactly.
That's just
Exactly.
that's a one sliver, one aspect of vulnerability, but it
Hmm.
can't be the whole pie. It's
Right.
just a sliver.
Well, April, I could talk to you forever about this. We're already starting to come to the end of the segment already. Is there something you want to add here? What else can we? How can we finish this?
Mm. Don't mistake readiness for so much seriousness. Readiness isn't something that you have to kind of dig in the sand and get ready for. It's
Hmm.
really time. Time gets people ready, not necessarily dating 50 people, although for some people that could be part of their readiness. A
Hmm.
lot of it is just self assessment check. Like,
Hmm.
what do I need going forward? What have I learned from my last relationship? And I guess the last thing to leave us on is don't ever ask anybody if they're ready. Find ways of, this is the worst thing you can do because you're going to get a false positive. Everybody
Yeah.
wants to be ready, right?
Hmm.
Everybody wants to be answering you in a way that's going to appeal to you, which could be a lie and it could be aspirational. So if you really want the truth of readiness, it's through your observation, not your question, your direct on the nose question of, are you ready? And also, you never want to tell a man on a date, you're not ready because it could be that he's just not ready for you.
Yeah.
So we have to stay away from that kind of language and just
Hmm.
really get out of our questioning and get into our
Hmm.
observation. Readiness isn't just about you. It's about what does the rest of his life look like? What do his family relationships look like? What does his career look like? Is he spending time with friends? Does he feel life balanced? All of those things will equate and add to the stage of readiness that you're looking for in partnership.
Well, it boils down to actions, or speak more louder than words. The observation. I like the way you put that. April, thank you so much. As always, I will link to all of your information to your company level connections. You do want people to contact you there, right?
They can, well, for women, I offer a complimentary application and profile within our network. It's an exclusive
Okay.
offline network. So they don't need to contact me directly because I've built a very seamless, thoughtful approach where we get to know you through your application and your profile. So that
Hmm.
is like, think about that as like a free lottery ticket. Come into the
Hmm.
network. I'm based in LA, but I have a nationwide network. And I'm also in partnership and collaboration with hundreds of matchmakers all around the US. So basically being in my network has that potential of maybe there's another colleague of mine that might have a match for you if it's not me. So it's always
Hmm.
worth it for women to be in my network. And as far as men go, yes, I mean, they can always go through our website, do a quick
Yeah.
application and get on the phone and we can chat about the search or find me on Instagram. I'm pretty active there at April
Yeah.
underscore Beyer, Beyer, and also on Facebook as April Beyer, dating and relationship expert.
Well, we will have all that in the show notes, all the links. And April, once again, thank you so much. And I'll look forward to our next conversation on Second Act TV.